Johnny? Don't be afraid. I'm looking for a woman with ashen hair. Seen her? Tell me everything, from the start. Where did you see her? What was she doing? It's important to me. Why not? What's wrong? Can't talk? Why? Lost your voice? Can I help you somehow?
Today we're going to take a look at two elements of game production that rarely, if ever, get talked about, despite the fact that they are absolutely essential for the experience of millions of players. The process of taking a game written in one language and converting it into another, what we call localization and adaptation.
To effectively localize a game, it must be translated into the local language. For The Witcher, this means translating thousands of pages of dialogue and recording hundreds of voiceover sessions in multiple languages. But to simply translate from the Polish version wouldn't be enough. So this is where adaptation comes in. Adaptation is the process of ensuring that the idioms, cultural references, and source material present in each version are relevant no matter where the person is playing it.
My name is Ainara Echaniz, and I'm the Senior Localization Project Manager.
Awesome.
And I'm Mikołaj Szwed, and I'm the Senior Localization Producer.
Awesome.
He's my boss.
For folks who don't know what localization means, can you explain what exactly your job is?
Well, we just make sure that the game is playable in all possible languages. So we take care of the translation, adaptation, the voiceover recordings, and the localization QA.
Yeah, a lot of people think that localization is just translation and dubbing and that's it. But actually the main objective of localization is that every player will feel the game as if it were developed in their language. That's our main goal. So no one will feel, okay, this game was developed in Polish. No, if they are playing Spanish, they need to feel that, okay, this was done for them in Spanish.
Yeah, and actually it's always funny because when we read the forums and people always say, yeah, I like to play the game in the original language. And there is no original language because actually that's something maybe not very common for other projects, is that we usually do all languages simultaneously. So there is no set language and then all the other languages just try to copy this one language. So each version is like made just as if it was like the original language. Especially when you look at Polish and English, because both of those versions are very rich on Easter eggs, and of course the Polish version has a lot of like Polish cultural Easter eggs. And also what's very important, especially with The Witcher, because depending on the language, we had to work with different scenarios, because in some of the regions the books have been already out, so we had like established translations that we wanted to follow. In others there were no books, so there was a decision whether like are we keeping the English or like are we sticking like doing some translations.
So basically the villages or other geographic accidents or people's names, they have that name for a reason. So White Orchard is called like that because probably there are orchards around the village. Yeah. Or I don't know, Beats, like the Novigrads, you know, like not very nice neighborhood. It's called like that for a reason. So basically we don't say the translators, okay, you need to, you know, copy whatever is there in English. It's like, okay, this is called like that because of that. So find something in your language that will, you know,
convey.
evoke
convey the message.
Convey
yeah.
that message.
And the same was, for example, with the Slavic monsters. For example, we had like a lot of Slavic monsters, or even like one of the characters, like the Pelar, which is like super important for Polish culture, because like we have this drama called Dziady, which is one of the biggest works of literature in Poland, and it evokes like something in Polish language, and like we tried to find words that would have similar role in other languages, for example.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point, because The Witcher specifically, it's a very European game, like in content and flavor, and inside Europe it's a very Slavic game. So there are a lot of regions that maybe are not familiar with all the folklore that is in The Witcher, and definitely there are regions that are totally oblivious of that, like the Arabic or Asia in general.
It's like a balance between showing the people something new, so that they can see like or learn about something totally different for them, like culturally, using the things that they have in their own culture.
Yeah, exactly.
Adaptation is a time-intensive and difficult process requiring somebody with knowledge of both the source material and the culture it's being adapted for. Boris Pugac-Muraskiewicz has worked at CD Projekt since the first game. Born and raised in the United States by his Polish parents, Boris moved to Poland after college, where he majored in theatre arts and semiotics. That's the study of, would you believe it, signs. If you tried, you couldn't conjure up somebody more appropriate to adapt the game for the English market than Boris.
The games that we make are dialogue intensive. The source material that we get is thoroughly Polish. We have to make it just as thoroughly resonate for the English language audience. It entails taking place names that are thrown out in Polish, finding equivalents that will resonate in a specific way in English. It entails a story that some NPC tells in Polish and tells it in a way that resonates, you know, against the canon of Polish fairy tales or Polish legends, and retelling it in English in a way where it resonates against the canon of English language, you know, fairy tales and English language legends and so on and so forth.
I was digging in some Warsaw slang, so I say, something like that, and it was not easy to translate. So I was explaining everything. There is a phrase, "Would you like to buy a brick?"
Okay.
It's completely nonsense in English, said like that. Yeah. But in Warsaw, after war, Warsaw was completely destroyed. So there were some smart guys from Prague who were in back alleys, and when they see approaching a guy with a nice coat or something, they grab a brick and ask him, "Would you like to buy a brick?" If he said no, he just get smashed head with the brick. So it was part of the folklore of the city. Right. And I would like to have the same situation in the really dangerous Novigrad. So I explained everything to Travis and Boris, and they were trying to translate it to the English.
Would you like a knuckle sandwich or something?
Maybe like that, yeah.
Most of those instances would have been invisible to you, right, in the sense that you would have just, oh yes, that makes sense. Yeah. And it makes sense to you as an English language player in English. You know, we've made every game in Poland. Ultimately, our games have to compete against games that are not made in Poland, that are made in English. Ultimately, ultimately nothing can sound strange to, you know, the English language player's ear. But I suppose that happens for absolutely every language that is downstream of Polish. I don't think the Spaniards, in, you know, adapting The Witcher 1, 2, or 3 to Spanish would just retell what they got in the English. They would retell it in a way that would resonate for the Spanish language player. That's to say, you have source material, and in games, especially I think our genre of games, there's an incredible amount of information that you need to get across to the player. You can get that across in a lot of different ways. The chief way is through dialogue with NPCs. Now, with all that information that has to be conveyed, you've got to engage in exposition. And ultimately, what you want for the gamer is for that exposition not to punch him in the nose, you know, slap him in the face, but to be effectively concealed behind a whole bunch of, call it theatrical ruses. And those ruses include, you know, extreme characterization, they include, you know, hiding things in dialect and accents and hiding things behind emotion. Once we get a batch of source material, it basically has the correct information. It might have some characterization. Our job is to make it as palatable as possible and as entertaining as possible to the gamer. So the adaptation entails varied dialogue by character, very specific ways of speaking, even assigning characters strange habits that will distinguish them against, you know, the mass of NPCs that populate our worlds. It essentially entails taking the source and then rewriting it in a way where the exposition is completely hidden behind emotion, behind characterization, behind accent, behind dialect.
Here.
Whiskey! Slither! Ringworm! Rubbish! Bumblebee! Flabbergasted! Ha! The sound of it! Whisky! Salmigondis! Pulvérulence! Raclure! Coxigru! Quel bonheur! Mleko! Szyszka! Ślimak! Trusia! Koszyczek! Pszcina! Ha! Jak to brzmi! Whisky! Nioro, nioro! Amen po! Charakter! Bumblebee! びっくり仰天！素敵な響きだ！モアコア！シュシカ！ウィルトカ！レイ！ホメ！ファビレフ！Ah! Who souls!
Can you name every language that it's been translated into?
Oh, sure. Wait. Fingers. Okay, so Polish, English, German, French, Brazilian, Portuguese, Russian, Japanese. That were the voiceover languages.
Yeah, those were dubbed as well.
And then Spanish, Latin American Spanish, Italian,
Korean,
Chinese,
traditional Chinese,
Czech, Hungarian. One more, Arabic. Yeah, and then Turkish for
And
game
Turkish,
of the
yes.
game of the year. So the fingers always help because like
Yeah,
okay,
it's like,
do I
I'm
have
missing
15?
one.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, European sensibilities are all pretty much similar, but when you're translating things to Chinese and to Arabic as well, is there ever things that need to be edited or changed?
In Arabic, yeah, it was a pretty complicated project first, like from the beginning, like when we were actually looking for someone to translate it into Arabic.
Oh yes.
Because we usually send translation tests, like to test like the company's translators, and then someone checks them and say, okay, these guys did a better job than these guys, and so on. And right from the beginning, we had people refusing to do it. The test.
And it was a test that I did for the English adaptation.
Yes.
Recruitment, which I just took like snippets of side quests from The Witcher 2. I didn't even think what I was doing, but there was like prostitution there.
There was
and
prostitution and
something.
alcohol,
Yeah.
all the awesome things for the Arabic world. So
yeah, they said like.
So we had, I don't know how many company
I think
things,
six.
let's say 50% refused because they felt offended.
Yeah.
But then we tested the other 3, and of course, well, we had a publisher, they help us a lot because of course we don't read Arabic. So then they started translating, and at some point they were like super late with everything. And it's like, okay, there's a problem, tell me, what's the problem? And the guys are like, we thought it was a normal game.
Yes.
It's like,
Yes.
I already gave you all the numbers. I thought it was I told you it was a huge game. We tried to find the balance in, of course, adapting those things for the market, but still keeping it like The Witcher. Yeah, like he mentioned, no one thought about it at the beginning, but there were gods everywhere, and and then the publisher said that we can't do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, then let's just God. Okay, they started using God, and then when testing, we discovered that one of the characters in the word God was corrupted on the screen. Yeah, it was like a big square like that. That usually happens when one of the letters is not present in the font.
Yeah.
And then I did some research, and it's like it seems it's intended that some fonts don't include all the characters for Allah, because you shouldn't be writing that.
Of course. Oh God, oh my God.
You shouldn't be writing that.
Yes.
So we changed everything again for like destiny, fortune, the stars, the Lord.
Yes. Well, but the general idea is like to censor as little as possible.
Yes.
So like adapt, but keep the original spirit.
Because, you know, if you remove those things that are like very present in The Witcher, maybe it was going to be weird, but at the end we got feedback from the community saying that it still felt like The Witcher, that it was like pretty well done. We had, well, they also, for example, they have issues like they don't have elves in their culture, or they don't have
Dwarves.
Yeah, dwarves, you know, these kind of things.
Yeah, the other market we had some work to do was actually Japan, but it was more graphic, like in terms of like showing intestines, for example. It's very interesting.
Or sex scenes.
Yeah, because for example, like severe arms, legs is okay, but like when you show the insides, it's not okay.
That's general in Asia.
Yeah.
They think it's disrespectful.
Yes. So.
And also, no. Like usually, no. Let me, because this is funny. Okay. Going back to the thing, so the graphic assets. So Japan has a very established like censorship. You always have like very clear guidelines on what you can show and what you can't show. So basically, we agreed with the Arabic publisher that they will get the same censorship as Japan.
Okay.
And I said, that's okay. but then the game starts, and Jennifer's butt appears
naked, yes, on the screen.
on the first image, I think, from the game or something like that. And the Japanese don't have a problem with butts, but the Arabs do.
So we had to do a special case, and it's the only difference between the Japanese and Arabic version, that in the Arabic version, Yennefer has pants in the scene, and Japan not, because Japan really insisted the bat needs to be naked.
The bat is important.
The bat is important, needs to be naked.
And it's like, maybe if that would have been appeared, like, I don't know, at some point, like super late in the game, it wouldn't be important, but it was like, you know, first screen, Jennifer's bat. It's like, okay.
That's true.
They didn't have a problem yet later when Yennefer's butt is out, or?
Of course, like when you have 100 hours game, you don't really expect that they play the whole game. So, but when you have the first cutscene in the game that shows a naked bat, that might be a little bit problematic, you know.
Chose a lovely spot.
Damn it, will you relent? I'm ploughing now I've done wrong. I shall see you at the wake, and I'll not accept any excuses.
'Twere old, black with sort, not worth much, I suppose. But I've no other.
One of the more subtle pieces of aural world building in The Witcher is its use of accents. On the first game, Boris said that the team only had 15 days to record over 20,000 lines of dialogue, so their ability to design proper accents for each race and region was severely limited. So for The Witcher 3, Boris and the team made sure that the game had a broad palette of accents that mirrored the scale of the game's world.
We already had the accents established for Temeria. The only thing that we added actually for Temeria is when we go into Velen, which is actually part of occupied Temeria. But we went so deeply into the country that we went deep into a West Country accent for the Velenese.
Been howling the nights through lately. Even the Baron's men are feared to come by.
When we decided that we wouldn't actually venture into Edirne for any part of The Witcher 3, we sort of felt safe to say that Welsh would apply to sentient supernatural being.
Right.
Okay? So if it's not an elf, if it's not a dwarf, but it's weird in some way, whether a gnome or godling or troll or, I don't know, the three crones actually.
Right.
We decided if it's weird, it's Welsh.
You freed an ancient power. It will rise again. Elsewhere, beyond our reach.
Novigrad struck us as a metropolis, enough of a melting pot that it would become London. And then we had, you know, this archipelago of islands, you know, a good way off the coast of the continent, and we'd already used the Southern Irish accent for the Kedwenis. Actually, if I'd had my way, I think I would have had the Skelligers just speak Norwegian in the English version, and had them have English subtitles.
Right.
But it would probably have been a stretch actually for players to hear Norwegian and read subtitles for. So we had to pick a dialect, and it was actually our studio in the UK that said, well, you know, give Liam Neeson a listen, give, you know, James Nesbitt a listen, and see what you think.
Wonder if he's as strong as he looks. That.
We going by the tavern later, you know, get splashed. Who knows? Who knows?
The major European accents in English, being Italian, French, German, and Spanish, have been thoroughly parodied. Yeah. So they're really off limits. So for Toussaint, in spite of the place names and wine names and so on and so forth, and a lot of the you know, character names being either French or from some other Romance, or somehow related to one of the other Romance languages, the accent we went for was Danish.
The matter's best left to Geralt.
Another challenge awaits me. Yet if Geralt is to hunt the beast, he ought to know. It struck again. The river surrendered a corpse. It washed up in the meander by the cockatrice.
Of course, to achieve this broad range of accents, you need voice actors, and a lot of them. While the famous voice of Geralt, Doug Cockle, recorded 3 to 4 hours every day for at some points almost a month at a time, there were also hundreds more people who came in for short sessions. The Witcher 3 has hundreds upon hundreds of voice actors, so many that in countries like Japan, they had essentially exhausted the actor pool available to them.
China was like...
Yeah, China was like, yeah, the pool is
very limited.
50.
Yeah.
Does that include, like, you know, Beggar 2 and
Oh, yes,
Prostitute
definitely.
5?
Yes. We had a lot of those, especially in Novigrad, because, like, I think our system for managing, like, the actors wasn't the best. For example, we record someone and then, like, 4 months later, it turns out that this person recorded 2 characters that now are in the same scene or talking to each other. Like, even I played, like, a couple of them in the Polish version. I was actually my biggest role is
very
like
nice,
one of
very nice drunkard.
Yes, one drunkard who harasses Rosavar Atre in one of the side quests. So
nice.
That's my best role in the game.
Oscar.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and Priscilla's song was awesome. Actually, finding all the actresses who know how to sing. Sometimes we had different.
No, because that's another thing. It's not just about adapting the lyrics. It's how the dubbing industry works in each country. Because, for example, in the UK, they have a pretty solid, you know, background, and the actors
musical background,
actors, and so on. Yeah. Other regions as well. And maybe you can call an actress and she can sing, and she's awesome.
Yeah.
But I don't know. In Brazil, you need to call for a singer,
right?
Because the actors don't sing, and you need a singer, and it's going to cost like 3 times more and then you have different tiers, and then you call, okay, let's bring like this tier because we can't spend like a ton of money in a song. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's the same with children.
Oh yeah, oh no, children, yes.
It's the same with children.
That's true, because in Poland, like, we use children for children.
Right.
So the children are real children.
But that's not the normal thing in the dubbing industry.
No.
You usually have women doing children.
Yes.
Because bringing children, well, first they are not professionals.
Right.
Bringing children, they have specific working time. You need to bring a tutor. You need parents' permission. It's more expensive. And basically, I mean, you can find, you know, the diamond and have an awesome acting child, but they are children and no.
Poland is like Wild Wild West. You don't have all that. They just
exactly.
come with their grandmas or moms and that's it. Yeah, I was really scared, especially. I remember,
other countries you need all that.
I remember in the quest with the crones, when you have this kid who talks about his daddy without a head, and mommy was screaming, and it was like, and the mom of this kid was sitting there. I was like, I really just hope that she doesn't just stand up and say, like, okay, that's enough. I don't want him to do that.
Oh, about that. We tried to have children in the Brazilian version, but they came to the studio with the parents. Yeah.
I didn't
with the
remember
parents. And then we learned that the song was about the devil because it's about the devil. They say no.
We always like to talk to developers about the bugs they found and how they fixed them, but I've never asked that of a localization department before. So this time I decided to ask them what was the worst mistake they made while working on the game. And it turned out their mistakes actually made it into the game.
My worst story is like, but most of the people probably haven't seen this dialogue because it's very remote. But
it haunts our nightmares.
Yes. So it was like very late, like totally late, just before the certification. Like everything was closed. And when I was playing the game, I realized one thing: when you're in Skellige, and when Yennefer asks you to help her with the side quest for Last Wish, etc., and you just ignore her, there's no resolution for the Yennefer romance at all. Nobody mentions anything anywhere. It's like nothing.
Okay.
Like nothing ever happened. And we're like, oh my god, we can't, like it can't stay like that. And it was too late to record anything. So what we did was we created a very small dialogue, which actually happens before the scene with Emmer when they meet in Vizima. And this dialogue is actually created out of line from other dialogues. It's like, it's more of the lines like, Yennefer, about what happened in Skellige. And Yennefer says, I don't want to talk about it, Geralt, but stop, Geralt. And that's the end of the dialogue. And we actually did it in all languages. And your story?
What? Well,
Chinese?
No. No, actually, well, okay. No one noticed, so it's not my fault.
Well, I'm not saying it's your fault.
Okay, we released the game. It was a side quest. No,
it was a side quest. It was a side quest. Radovic's assassination.
Chinese version. It was not translated at all.
Oh my god, really?
We patched the translation in before anyone could get to that side quest.
Because it's at the very end of the game, so you know it took probably people like 30-40 hours to get there.
I was like, how is that no one noticed that?
Yes, that was...
The whole quest is in English.
It was like a brain fart for us.
So much happens, well, I don't know, at the lunch table, at the coffee maker, at the water cooler, in the corridors, in terms of just, you know, thoughts and ideas flowing back and forth between departments. The writers with the quest designers with the writers with us with the writers, us with the quest designers. There are communications via various channels that flow, you know, between those departments, and ultimately, every idea that winds up in the game is not the product of a straight pipeline. It's the product of a very winding path. If I were to draw it on the whiteboard, it would be, you know, just squiggly, you know, and it'd be a squiggly drawing, you know, and then you have a box,
right?
You know, that's to my mind, that's what game development is.
遅いぞ。
私の旦那、
牛乳みたいに白いか。
そうね。
牛乳。しっかりしろよ。息が続かないんだ。行け。止まれ。
男爵はいるが。
お前が誰かによるな。
ウィッチャーだ。彼と話がしたい。
じゃあ俺は可愛いセロ女王とやりたい。前に見たことあるやつだな。十字路のところの宿屋だ。少し前いただろ。どっか他の場所に行くんじゃなかったのか。
ここに用事がある。男爵と話がしたい。
要件は
他の者には聞かせられない大事な話だ。
あっち行ってろ。
兵士長と呼ばれてたな。テメリア兵なのか。
あんたには関係ないだろう。
脱走兵か。
テメリア軍はもう存在しない。
ここで何をしてるんだ。
黒の軍団に敗北した後、選択肢は2つあった。そのまま普通に暮らすか、 ゲリラに入って抵抗し続け、死ぬまで愛するテメリアのために戦うか、我々は前者を選んだ。
男爵が指揮官なのか。
そうだな。まあ指揮官だ。